everybody, Klaire Fluffle here, and with my birthday over, it was seriously so much fun. Thanks again to everybody who stopped by that birthday stream. We are back to ranking the soundtracks, and we've got a great one today. One that, as I'm sure you've heard before, I honestly expected to place a lot higher. I've been looking at the placement for this one thinking, no way is it that low, and then seeing future soundtracks and thinking, man, this series was really hard. If you want to congratulate me on one of life's hardest trials, please consider giving this video a like and ringing that notification bell after subscribing, as those things really help me out. Also, maybe check out my Patreon for neat perks, including 2-day early access to all videos, including the Kirby soundtrack rankings. Special big thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan pup-trins, Biohazard, Furiol, Tyke, and remember, Miss K says 12354, I once ate a fish alive. I love you guys! Kirby Fighters 2 hasn't made the biggest waves in the community with its soundtrack. Frankly, I blame this entirely on the UI being so good, it overshadowed everything else. Seriously, look at how gorgeous these menus are. How do you do this? But for those who have played it, oh, you know. But Klaire, you may be wondering, and if you're not wondering, you sure are wondering now, how could the soundtrack be so good if it's just a sequel to Fighters Deluxe? For starters, this isn't just a sequel. While the basics are the same and accounted for, the scope of the game is so much larger. This can be seen with the inclusion of online, a new story mode, this UI, it's so good! And of course, the music. The Triple Deluxe sounding tracks from Deluxe are nice, and as you can logistically tell, I prefer Triple Deluxe's soundtrack to this one. Kirby Fighters 2 just goes ham. Oh, what a cute remix of Koo's theme in the original Kirby Fighters. That's so adorable. Oh, this is insane! Kirby Fighters Deluxe's music had more of a fighting game feel to it. Kirby Fighters 2's, wow, that's really awful to say, goes all out with that approach. The music for this game just gets you excited and ready to fight. Not only that though, but compared to every other Kirby game, it's super stylistic. The instruments used are like nothing you've heard in any Kirby game prior. I'm sure you can tell just by that sample of Springy Handland earlier, but even something with more traditional sounds like the character select tracks, yes, tracks, there are multiple depending on which game mode you pick, seriously, this game's nuts! Have a sound all their own. It helps the soundtrack stand out, which is always good. Association, all that. Of course, that wouldn't mean anything if the music wasn't good, and you can tell by the placement that I do think pretty highly of it. While it was short-lived, I did play competitive Kirby Fighters 2, and put some solid time into practicing. And practicing for the speedrun, what can I say, I'm predictable, and I got very familiar with the music for the turning legal stages. As a Parasol main, I became very familiar with Factory Tour, a perfect stage for an offensive rushdown ability. The track itself is thankfully really good, because if it wasn't, I'd be in pretty big trouble. Outside of the turny legal stages, the music just kills it when it comes to keeping the mood energetic yet intense for the undergoing fight. Waddle Dee train tracks, Gourmet Go-Go, Fountain of Dreams, even Green Gardens, one of the most boring tracks in Star Allies, gets a great arrangement here. It's not fantastic, but it's Star Allies' fault. Literally not at all Kirby Fighters 2 is. I'd never imagined that Green Gardens could sound this hype, but here we are. Wrong game again. Outside of the stages and menus, though, there isn't much to talk about. which is fine. That's all a fighting game really needs to be excellent. But there is a story mode that has good music. There are boss fights to be had in this, and those tracks, excellent. But the menus for the story mode are the one area I do find the soundtrack a little lacking in. And this may not fully be the soundtrack's fault, but the way the story mode is structured, you'll be hearing these a lot, and I don't think they're very catchy or addictive or fun enough to not be kind of annoying. Again, they're not bad, but is the opening of this track really something you'd want to hear at least like 10 times in the span of a half hour? Those boss battle tracks, though, bangers. The boss theme, which expertly melds the Kirby Fighters 2 with the Kirby 64 theme remix that keeps that game to sound font, being the worst boss theme of the bunch, really says a lot for the quality. Shadow Kirby, despite being a carryover from Deluxe and little else, has two great boss themes, one being a remix of practically what's become Tyranta's theme at this point, and an equally menacing theme that remixes multiple tracks from Amazing Mirror, including the super fun and jovial Forest Nature area. It's obviously far more sinister here, given Shadow Kirby's mysterious presence, but listen, all that matters is that it's a banger remix. The main two bosses of the game, Day-to-Day and Meta Knight, also have some great themes. Their second fight is strangely ominous, given who you're fighting, but since they're being taken over by the masks, I guess that makes sense. Day-to-Day Meta Knight soul anybody? That said, far and away, my favorite track in the entire game is the one that plays during their first real boss fight. No Waddle the Imposters Among Us Susibaka. The actual fight with these two has an absolute delight of a track playing in the background. So intense, so energetic, and when the main melody kicks in towards the end, top-notch stuff. I want to see more of Day-to-Day and Meta Knight for every reason that you could imagine, and if the music isn't nearly this good, that's the reason on the top of the list. Taking the anthem of Kirby Fighters 2 and combining it with both Day-to-Day and Meta Knight themes while still sounding unique. Holy moly, the soundtrack is fantastic. I kind of talked about my only real gripe with it. I guess if the unique sounds aren't for you, then there isn't as much to love here, but one, that's super subjective, and you're ignoring the tracks that don't have that style. So we'll go on the opposite end and talk about one of the, shall we say, sleeper hit elements of the soundtrack. Something great about it that nobody really seems to talk about. Yeah, the soundtrack is high intensity, and yet, rules, I love it so much! But the game isn't afraid to mellow down with some very gentle tracks. I'm not just talking low energy either, I specifically mean gentle. The options menu, for example, is a remix of the File Select and Forest Nature area from Amazing Mirror, and unlike Shadow Kirby, which made it intense, this is what you'd expect. Gentle, serene, therapeutic even. And while that's definitely the most extreme example, I'd hardly call it the only one. This is something that fighting games don't do enough, I think. And I get why, it's a fighting game, having addictive and catchy tunes playing throughout keeps you in that fighting mood, but the fighting doesn't last forever, you know? And I can think of fighters that cool it down, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Skullgirls, Guilty Gear, there's plenty. So few of them specifically go for soothing, though. It makes Kirby Fighters 2 an even more unique soundtrack, not only compared to other Kirby games, but other fighting games as well. If we're talking other platform fighters, there's like, what, Brawl? Any other one of those have like calming soundtracks or anything? I can't think of any others. Compare this soundtrack to anything and it really comes off as incredibly unique while still, of course, being well put together. If I do have to voice one more complaint with it though, I hate having to only rank it at 21st. I feel like with how I'm praising it, we should be in like the top 10 already, but we're not even halfway done with the list. We're still 11 away from the top 10. And like I mentioned earlier, I've absolutely thought about ranking this one higher. That's like the last 10 that I've talked about or whatever. But I can't bring myself to because I'd have to rank other soundtracks lower. Assuming that I don't fall behind and all of the videos premiere when they should, I haven't gotten a single Kirby month without an error, so I'd be very surprised if this was the first one. We still have 18 days to go and a lot of soundtracks, so if you needed any additional confirmation that this was brutal, there you go. Speaking of future videos though, they still need to get done, so I am off to work on them. Until I see you all again, hopefully tomorrow, I've been Klaire, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye!